Judge Ural Glanville has just been removed from the Young Thug YSL trial, guys. And this is happening in Fani Willis Fulton County, and it's literally just a matter of time until things take a turn for the worse. That is, if you're working for the district attorney. Now, you guys might be familiar with Judge Glanville and his antics there in the trial. He basically threw his weight around and tried to squeeze his way out of the hot seat. That's because he held a secret meeting with DA Fani Willis's team, with the defense not being notified. Now, to make matters worse, they held this ex parte secret conversation with a key witness who they intimidated, or at least allegedly. Now, what's alarming though is he's being removed to preserve the public's confidence in the judicial system. Not that he went behind the back of the defense and worked with the prosecution team, or at least that's the message that's being spread so as to save his credibility or what's left of it. Now, the question on everybody's mind is, well, what happens next? Well, we're going to get to that and more in just a second, but this is setting a precedent, guys. It means that change is coming in Fulton County, and that there are people within the justice system that are aware of what the people are thinking, that there is clear corruption within different offices, which includes the district attorney's office. But here's the latest report on Judge Ural Glanville's removal and what might happen next. By the way, guys, thanks so much for supporting the channel. Thank you so much for hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Take a listen here.
Tonight, there is now a new judge overseeing the Young Thug YSL trial. This is happening 8 months into the criminal proceeding. Superior Court Judge Shakura Ingram has been appointed after Judge Ural Glanville was removed today.
This all centering around a private meeting last month between Judge Glanville, prosecutors, and a witness. The defense was not included. 11 Live's Cody Alcorn is live outside the Fulton County Courthouse in downtown Atlanta. So, Cody, a lot of folks wondering what happens now.
Well, Jennifer and Ron, just a couple of hours ago, I spoke to DeMonte Kendrick's attorneys, and right now they are drafting up a motion for a mistrial that they hope to have filed by the end of the week.
They have lost sight of the duties of a prosecutor.
That's attorney Doug Weinstein.
I am the attorney for DeMonte Kendrick, also known as Yak Gotti.
Young Thug's co-defendant in one of the country's most watched trials. Weinstein claiming
we've seen some bias from the judge.
Arguing the private meeting last month between Judge Glanville, prosecutors, and their sworn witness, Lil Woody, was the final straw.
We wouldn't have filed this motion if we didn't believe it should be granted.
Their motion of recusal, filed on June 12th, granted Monday. Judge Rachel Krause wrote, quote, "This court has no doubt that Judge Glanville can and would continue presiding fairly over this matter if the recusal motions were denied. But the necessity of preserving the public's confidence in the judicial system weighs in favor of excusing Judge Glanville from further handling of this case." Weinstein now questioning how the trial can move forward.
Once recusal is granted, is you have to rewind the case to June the 12th. How do you unhear days of testimony? How do you take notes away from the jury? It's impossible. We're going to be filing a motion for a mistrial based on the conduct of the prosecutors in this case.
Just to correct this report, this trial has been going on for around 18 months now, which makes this decision to remove Glanville that much more impactful. Also, the prosecutors here are officials coming from District Attorney Fani Willis's office. Now, it's also worth noting that Judge Ural Glanville denied 3 motions for his recusal. And now we understand why he was so angry at defense attorney Brian Steele. Steele was the one who was informed about the secret meeting, a meeting that many have called out because the optics looked like Glanville was working for the prosecution. So former Georgia Bar Association President Lester commented on this and said, there are instances where you can have an ex parte communication that deals with scheduling, but one of the requirements is that you notify the defense immediately about that. The problem is that the court didn't tell the defense team. In fact, it was clear that they didn't have any plans at all to let them know about it. Now, just a refresher, guys, let's briefly talk about the timeline here. In early June, around the 7th, Kenneth Copeland planned to invoke his Fifth Amendment right. For anybody who might not be aware, this is the right to remain silent so as not to incriminate ourselves. In the transcript that Judge Glanville released, it was clear that they were intimidating Copeland, telling him he had 2 choices. Either he testifies or he stays in prison until the trial is basically over. This was the message from the prosecution team, the same one that was said by Judge Glanville. The ex parte meeting took place on June 10th, a meeting that was not shared to the defense. Now, as you guys might remember, Brian Steele confronted Glanville in court and asked him about this conversation. Back then, veteran criminal defense attorney Don Samuel blasted Glanville, saying that what the judge did was unconscionable. Now, remember that Glanville tried to put Steele in prison for knowing about this secret and not sharing how he found out about it? So the bad news for him is that this trial is now under the microscope. Hundreds of thousands of people view these videos online, sometimes millions, and a lot of people saw him freak out on Steele. And now we can see why. Now, the order is around 10 pages long, but we'll get to the important points here. The court has ordered to recuse Glanville under the motion requested by defendant DeMonte Kendrick. The motion from defendant Jeffrey Williams to disqualify Glanville and recuse him from all further dealings in relation to this case was also granted by the court.
On Monday, motions filed seeking to recuse Judge Ural Glanville from the case were granted by Fulton County Judge Rachel Krause.
If this new judge comes in and the lawyers argue for mistrial, they have a legal basis for it.
Defense attorneys filed the motions claiming Glanville showed bias toward the state. After it was revealed in court, he met with prosecutors and their witness, Kenneth Copeland, after Copeland refused to testify the day prior.
There are instances where you can have an ex parte communication, but one of the requirements is that you notify the defense immediately about that. That did not occur.
Lester Tate, a former president of the Georgia Bar Association, says another key factor in the decision was Glanville's defense of his actions.
You don't defend yourself, and that's one of the things that she put in the order.
In her ruling, Krause said while the court has, quote, no doubt that Judge Glanville can and would continue presiding fairly over this matter, preserving the public's confidence in the judicial system weighs in favor of excusing him from the case. Manny Aurora, a criminal defense attorney and former Fulton County prosecutor, also unrelated to the case, says he believes she made the right decision.
And as we heard just a second ago, this case has been reassigned to Judge Shakura Ingram. This means that even with Glanville gone, the trial continues, although it's expected that a motion for mistrial is going to be filed any day now. This was also the same idea that former Georgia Bar Association President Lester Tate suggested, saying that defense attorneys will look to get this entire case thrown out. Many commend Judge Cruz for removing Glanville from this case. Manny Aurora, a criminal defense attorney and former Fulton County prosecutor, says that the right decision has been made. He explained that Judge Ural Glanville and the prosecution strong-arming Copeland into testifying was a bad look. Not informing the defense made it even worse. He stated that these actions left a very bad odor, which kind of reminds me of how DA Fani Willis and her former lover Nathan Wade did the same thing in Donald Trump's election interference case. With this latest hiccup in the case, this RICO trial is now recorded as the longest-running criminal trial in Georgia history. And while many believe that removing Glanville was a step in the right direction, there are those who wonder if the same will be done to the colleagues of DA Fani Willis. Now, speaking of which, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis must be asking herself where she went wrong with her decisions. This is because Donald Trump is getting win after win against her, as many now conclude that her case against the former president is done. Now, I talk about that in more detail in a previous video that you guys definitely have to check out, but before I go, I just want to thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button, for subscribing to the channel, and for sharing these videos. It really does help me out. I'll see you guys on the next one.